All right, everyone, here we go with the notes for Chapter 8. We're going to be talking about the 7 core elements of an effective performance. This chapter is split up into 2 videos. We'll cover the first 4 elements in this video and then the last 3 elements in the next one. First off, a little bit of an introduction. The idea that acting is acting. Sort of, anyway. To be effective, an actor must create a sense of drama. And when we talk about drama, we're talking about a situation or a series of events in which there is an interesting or intense conflict of forces. In other words, we're telling a story. A good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A good story has conflict and resolution. So all those things have to be portrayed within the scope of telling that particular story. And the drama comes in the ways that we interpret that particular storyline. For us in voice acting, again, all we have is the luxury of our voice and the way that we portray certain lines, the way that we say certain things that helps keep an audience intrigued in what it is that we are conveying to them. Drama is what gives a performance the appearance of believable reality. If you're watching a story unfold and there's too much sensationalism, too much fantasy that people just can't buy into, that element of the suspension of disbelief that we've talked about in previous chapters, if the audience is not able to make that jump, then we're not effectively telling the story. Or it could just be the story itself is bad. But at the very least, we're not succeeding in making that story come alive to the listening audience. Now, this will contain elements of conflict, humor, mystery, emotion, feelings. All these things get wrapped up in when we're conveying drama to an audience. It also creates tension, suspense, and anticipation for what is next. If you're really drawing your audience in, they're going to be on the edge of their seat, waiting to hear the very next thing that's coming up. They may try to predict what's going on. Can they do it? They're going to stay tuned in to find out. It all starts for us as voice actors with pretending. Regardless of the copy you are reading, there's always going to be some sort of character in the words. And to bring that character to life, you must relearn how to play. You must relearn how to become a master of pretending. You are pretending you're the 6-year-old child in the grocery store that's thinking about stealing the candy bar. You're pretending that you're an authority of a particular company that is talking about the highlights of a product or service that you're offering. No matter what the script is, we are in the neighborhood of make-believe. We are pretending that we are, in essence, the very character that we are lending our voice to. To pretend is to give a false appearance of being. So we're playing a little bit of deception here. Again, it's not about us. We're not trying to portray ourselves. We're trying to portray the person that the lines were written for, as if it was that person himself, herself that is speaking. Now, the major problem that most people have in performing for voiceover is in creating a believable illusion of reality while reading from a script. Does the listener truly believe that you are the character? Does the listener truly believe the message you are giving him or her is from that character, from that person of authority, from that child, from that particular person with a particular occupation? Is it possible for them to make that jump with you into the disillusion of belief? So now, with that out of the way, let's get into the 7 core elements, and they just go right down the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Core element number 1, A, is for audience. When you have a conversation with somebody, you know who it is that you're talking to. In everyday life, generally, when you talk to somebody, you see their face, you know who you're talking to. You dial their number on the phone, you know who you're calling. So in our environment as voice actors, we need to know who our audience is. Who is the person or the people that really needs to hear the message that we have? And we need to meet them where they are at. So we determine who you are talking to, or more importantly, who your character is talking to. You need to decide on who will be the ideal person who needs to hear what you have to say. And by knowing your audience, you will be able to figure out the most appropriate and effective way to speak to them. What is your message? Who is your audience? Cater your message to meet the needs of that particular audience. Meet the audience where it is at. The most important thing to remember is that you are always talking to only one person. The danger of trying to shotgun your performance by trying to just reach anybody and everybody, it will generally result in the listening audience losing interest and becoming uncomfortable. Think about if you've ever gone to the fair or to a carnival in your town, and you've got what they usually call the barker, the person that is just kind of yelling out into the crowd, step right up and see this great and wonderful and weird thing that we have going on. Step right up. Maybe you're interested in what's going on because you're intrigued by something that's unusual. But most people tend to just kind of block that out because they feel like they're not talking to them personally. They're just making noise out into the crowd, and it has no relevance to their lives. So, especially when we're talking about the recorded spoken word, if you're trying to just connect with anybody and everybody, the audience is going to lose interest. They might even become uncomfortable with what it is that you're doing. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. Focus your attention on speaking to just one person as though you were having a conversation with them. It may even help you to describe the person that you are speaking to. Do so in as much detail as possible. Give that person a name. We've talked about that idea before. Picture yourself talking to Joe or to Susan or whoever it is, and think about who Joe or Susan is. What are the needs of that person? What is that person looking for? What's the best way to be able to approach Joe or Susan with the message that you have that they'll be receptive to it? Think about that and cater your message and the delivery of your message to meet the needs of that person. Now, one thing I should note, your one-person audience should be somebody that you do not know. Don't picture yourself talking to your mother or to your brother or to your best friend or to your partner or to whoever else, because we make assumptions about people that we know, sometimes correct. But in doing so, we kind of have this skewed sense of who the person really is and what the person really needs to hear. So if the person is unfamiliar to us in an intimate way, but we kind of have an idea of the demographics of that person, their behaviors, their attitudes, their values in a general sense, it's going to be easier for us to be able to focus our message and our vocal delivery to that fictitious, but in our minds at the moment, very real person. Core element number 2, B, is for backstory. A backstory is the specific event that takes place immediately before the first word of copy. It's the reason your character is saying the words in the script. So what we are talking about here is the idea that we are coming into a script at a point in time. And most of us, the only time that there wasn't a backstory was the moment right before we were born. Okay? I mean, yes, we spent time in the womb and that sort of thing. We're not going to go down that road at the moment. But in every other scenario in our lives, you were doing something before you clicked on this video to start paying attention to the lecture. What were you doing? What was your mindset right before clicking on the video? Were you trying to navigate through Blackboard? Were you having problems with your internet connection? Are you doing it on a computer, desktop, laptop? Are you using a tablet or a smartphone? What sort of environment are you in? Are you in a bedroom? Are you in the kitchen? Are you sitting in your car using the free Wi-Fi that the college offers? All those things are backstory prior to the moment that you clicked on the video to watch this lecture. In the same way, when we are reading a script, there is something that happened that is not in the script immediately before the point that the script begins. So for voiceover, a backstory needs to be what we think about. It needs to be something that is immediate, right before the point the script begins, and something that's powerful that causes your character to speak. If you're having trouble with your Wi-Fi connecting to this lecture, you're going to come into the lecture rather agitated. If you're watching on a big screen, you have your computer hooked up to your smart TV at home or something, the notes that you see on the screen are going to be bigger than life. And that's going to cause a reaction in how you receive the material. In the same way, there's going to be something that happens immediately before the script that puts the character in a certain mindset and a certain attitude, and that is the place from where your character is speaking. By understanding what brought your character to that particular moment in time, you will know how your character should respond. Now, any given script may have several opportunities for a backstory, and for each of those, a very short phrase or a one-word lead-in might help to be able to bridge transitional thoughts. This kind of goes back to the idea of the lead-in line that we've talked about earlier. Creating that line that helps us to be able to get into our character. What was happening right before this moment? What's the pre-life of the character, or the pre-life of the overall situation and environment that is going on? And we use that to help us to be able to create and then maintain a consistency in the character for which we are reading. Core element number 3, C is for character. In most cases, you will find clues about your character within the script itself, whether it's in the way that the script is written, whether it's in the phrasing that is used, whether it's in the spellings of words. That can also be a clue to us, especially if you have a script writer that is well versed in the idea of how words are spoken. If they write the script using certain phonetics to help us to be able to generate words in a certain way, that's also going to be a clue for us into the character. Begin by defining your character in as much detail as you possibly can. No detail is too small for us to consider if we can stop and think about it. Would Bugs Bunny have the same sort of voice that he does if he didn't have the buck teeth? Maybe, maybe not. Something that you have to think about. The wise attitude of Bugs Bunny. Would it be portrayed differently if his voice was lower in tone? If it was pitched in a different sort of way? If he was more of a slow talker as opposed to a fast talker? All these different things come into play when we think about our character. Learn how to reveal your character's emotions and feelings through your voice, and you will create believable characters. And all these things that we talked about, just a couple of the many, many different ways that we can analyze a character and who that character is. All those things come into play as we make decisions about how to give that character a voice. Core element number 4, D is for desires. All characters have wants and needs. You have wants and needs. Those wants and needs are what helps propel us in some of the words that we say and some of the actions that we do. It's true of your character as well. Desires, objectives, and intentions all refer to what your character ultimately wants as a result of his or her words and actions. Your character's wants and needs and desires, they're all to accomplish something from speaking those words. Your character is not there just for the sake of being there. They have a purpose. They have a motivation. And everything that the character does, everything the character says, the way the character says them, all points to that end, to their ultimate goal, to their vision for what they want to accomplish. One key to choosing your character's desires is to consider the interaction between your character and the one-person audience. How does the character relate to the audience? Is there a reason that the character should be annoying and grating to kind of help capture the attention of the audience for one reason or another? Is the character trying to be informative and authoritative? Is the character trying to relate on a sentimental sort of level? All these things are things that need to be considered. What's the desire of the character? What's the character's intention? That's going to dictate how that character interacts. Now, be wary of choosing a desire of selling. That's a very popular thing to try to do if you are giving voice to a commercial script as a narrator, as a voiceover. Because the character himself, herself, is not necessarily explicit. It may not be something that has to fit an exact sort of mold. So when the character is rather general, especially in a narration of a commercial, we tend to default to this person that's just trying to be a pitch person. And that can be dangerous because people do like to buy stuff, but they hate being sold to. So when you approach the sales pitch, you want to try as much as possible to not make it sound like a sales pitch. So be very careful of that when you're determining the voice of your character. All right, that's going to be a good place for us to take a break. We will finish up the notes with part 2 of this video. So join me over there and we'll finish up chapter 8.